Hi, I'm Mia,
Hi, I'm Sydney,
and welcome to the very first episode of Clouds and Clarity.
This is the space where we talk about misinformation, what it looks like, why it matters, and what we can do to keep ourselves and our communities accurately informed.
Now, before we jump into the heavy stuff, we want to explain the names Clouds and Clarity. When we were brainstorming ideas for this project, we kept coming back to the image of clouds. Clouds are pretty, obviously, but they also make it harder to see things clearly.
And honestly, that felt like the perfect metaphor. When misinformation spreads, it creates confusion. Like you're trying to see a mountain in front of you, but there's a thick layer of fog. You can still kind of make out the outline, but the details get blurry. You lose depth. You lose accuracy.
And our goal of this podcast is the opposite: clarity. Pushing away the fog, helping out listeners, friends, classmates, and honestly, even ourselves learn how to understand the information we see online instead of just blindly trusting it.
So let's get into the foundation of today's episode. What even is misinformation?
The simplest definition of misinformation comes from the dictionary. Misinformation is false or inaccurate information. Basically, anything that gets the facts wrong. And importantly, misinformation doesn't require bad intentions. Someone can genuinely believe that they're sharing something true, but if it's incorrect, it still counts as misinformation.
And that's what makes it so tricky. Most misinformation doesn't feel like a lie. It feels like a misunderstanding, a rumor, a half-truth. Oftentimes, it's just someone repeating something they saw online because it looked real.
A great example is medical information. Someone might post a home remedy that worked for them, but there's no scientific evidence behind it. They're not trying to harm anyone. They're just sharing what they think is helpful. But if other people try it and something goes wrong, the consequences are still real.
Or think about confusing headlines. You scroll through social media, you see a post with a dramatic claim, and it grabs your attention. But the headline might oversimplify something, or leave out context, or be outdated. And suddenly people share it without checking the full story.
Now, here's where things get important. There are three terms people mix up all the time: misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation.
Misinformation, which we will mostly be focusing on throughout this podcast, is false information shared by accident or without harmful intent.
Disinformation is different. Disinformation is intentional. It's when someone creates or spreads false information on purpose, usually to manipulate, influence, or mislead others. Think fake news articles, edited videos, or people pretending to be experts when they're not.
And then there's malinformation. This one doesn't get talked about as often. Malinformation is when real information is taken out of context or twisted to fit an agenda. The facts themselves might be true, but the way they're presented leads the audience to a wrong or harmful conclusion.
For example, sharing someone's private messages or personal information to embarrass them, or pulling a tiny part of a scientific study and ignoring the rest because it fits what you want to say.
And here's the thing, all three, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, can spread extremely fast, especially on social media. But the differences matter because intention affects impact, and impact affects what we can do to stop it.
Something we also wanted to highlight is that not all false information fits neatly into the three categories. Stereotypes, for example.
Stereotypes about mental health are especially harmful. They spread misinformation about what certain disorders look like, what symptoms people should experience, or how people with those conditions behave.
Some common examples are things like people with anxiety are just overreacting, or depression is just sadness, or ADHD only happens in little kids who can't sit still. Now, these statements aren't just wrong, they're damaging.
They create shame. They prevent people from getting help. They turn real mental health struggles into punchlines or character flaws. And once a stereotype catches on, it becomes a part of how people think, even if they know it isn't true.
A lot of people don't realize how much misinformation starts from stereotypes. Sometimes it isn't a post or a news article. It's just repeated assumptions passed down from family members, friends, or even TV shows.
And that's why talking about it is so important. You can't challenge something you don't even know you're believing.
So now that we understand what misinformation is, let's talk about why it matters. Why make a whole account and podcast about it?
First, misinformation affects our real lives more than we realize. It changes how people vote, how they handle their health, how they interact with their friends, and even how they treat strangers.
It can also create fear. When people don't know what's true, they fill those gaps with guesswork or worst case scenarios. Now that's how rumors spread during emergencies, and that's how fake medical cures go viral.
And misinformation damages trust. Trust in science, trust in communities, trust in institutions. Once people feel like they've been misled, it's hard to rebuild that trust.
Plus, social media algorithms make everything worse. They promote posts that create strong emotions. If something is shocking, scary, or dramatic, it spreads way faster. Whether it's true or not almost doesn't matter.
So we're here to push back, not in a boring lecture way, but in a way that gives people real tools to stay informed without feeling overwhelmed.
Let's talk briefly about how misinformation spreads so quickly. It's not just because people believe everything they see, it's also because our brains love shortcuts.
Right. Cognitive shortcuts help us make quick decisions, but they can also trick us. For example, if we see something repeated a lot, our brain assumes it's true. This is called the illusory truth effect.
And confirmation bias, another big one. That's when we believe things that match what we already think, even if the information isn't actually accurate.
Social media plays a massive role because posts aren't sorted by truthfulness, they're sorted by engagement. It rewards things that gets clicks, comments, and shares, not things that are actually accurate or helpful.
And once something goes viral, it's incredibly hard to correct. Even if someone posts a fact check, fewer people usually see the correction than the original false claim.
So, what can we do? We're not powerless. Here are a few habits anyone can build.
First, slow down. Don't share something the moment you see it. Take a second to check the source and the date.
Second, look for additional evidence. If only one account is saying something, that's a red flag.
Third, check the author or creator. Are they qualified? Are they known for their accuracy? Do they actually provide links to credible sources?
Fourth, watch out for emotional language. If a post is trying to make you angry, scared, or shocked, that's often a sign to dig deeper.
And finally, be open to being wrong. This one really matters. We all get things wrong. The most responsible thing you can do is correct yourself and learn from it.
That brings us to the end of our first episode. Today, we laid out the foundation for the rest of the series, and honestly, there's still so much more to cover.
Exactly. In future episodes, we'll talk about how misinformation spreads specifically on social media, how stereotypes become facts, how AI makes things way more complicated, how to fact check properly, and how misinformation affects mental health.
If you want to clear the clouds with clarity, stay with us.
Thanks for listening to Fixing the Fog. We'll see you next week.